Why is it that whenever a man has sex with a lot of women, he's a stud?
He's a stud.
He's called a stud.
A stud.
But when a woman sleeps with more than a few men, she's a slut.
A slut. A slut.
A slut.
I don't understand that.
Snatch and Grab is the movie I think that I would like to get back. Not because I want to redo it or would think that there's anything wrong with it, but because I feel like audiences, at least festival audiences, I think didn't get it, which is of course going to be my fault, but maybe it was a little before its time. The script is interesting because it came about before, or I should say it came about right after A Scarlet Waters. And I forgot which one, to be honest. And a couple of including one of the actors, who I won't name which one, she had this idea of like, what if the key, and of course it's super absurd, but what if the reason why women were always sort of subjugated to men is that they looked at sex differently than men did? That they looked at it somehow as men were more disposable with it.
Pyramid scheme.
Oh, well, this just gets better.
Okay, it's like a game, all right? 1 point for every guy you meet, 3 points if he asks you out, 5 points if you sleep with him.
This is ridiculous.
Don't call it ridiculous.
We're in. Yeah, we're in.
Thank you. Okay. There are going to be some rules, though. There are rules.
Okay.
No kissing on the lips.
Well, so Pretty Woman.
Yeah, kissing's hot. I mean,
A good kiss, a really, really good kiss, that could last me like a week.
So a lot of that was her idea. The idea of these 4 friends who have all faced different forms of very overt sexism. When I think about that whole process, it was such a fun filmmaking process. We went mockumentary style for a lot of reasons. One, we wanted to kind of add a little bit of an edge to it. And I don't even know if The Office was out, but I was always a big Christopher Guest fan. And I love that you can bring a certain kinetic energy through the camera shooting that way. Very dirty, intentionally making it not look nice. The other part of that too was that Chris couldn't shoot the whole thing. Chris wasn't on set for very much at all, actually. And so I felt like a dirtier camera would make it less clear that we were using a series of DPs and a series of cameramen, like more available light situation, that kind of thing. But it was one of my favorite ones to revisit during this process because I think it is fun.
Of course, women in many Native American cultures held roles equal to those of men. But as society developed, women were pushed further and further away from equality. Look at politics, look at pop culture. Women have been conditioned to believe they need a big man to save them. Okay guys, don't forget your papers are due next week. You can stop by my office during my hours if you need any help. No one has so far. But if you don't, want to come by during my office hours, I can give you extra credit, so.
Ah, yes. You try and mold young minds for months, and they don't give a shit. But mention their paper that's been assigned all semester is due next week, and they literally beat down your door for help.
It plays very improvisational, but it's definitely scripted. There were a lot of drafts, but we settled on telling 4 different stories with 4 different characters. And I gotta say that the leads in this really threw themselves into this project because the project's a little racy. I mean, it's very blunt. I was very careful when I crafted the characters and crafted the dialogue that all of them had a say in what their parts were, what happened, and kind of what went into making the film. Their comfort level had to be number 1, chief of anything. Anytime we did any kind of love scene, which again, we never used nudity ever. I feel like we just don't. There's a lot of reasons why. But when we do that stuff, it was always an all-female crew outside of me and the DP, right? Like everything was always taken to the level of you are comfortable, you are safe. If at any point you don't want to do the scene, we will figure out a different way. I would tell them always, my goal was for you to do the next film as much as I want you to do this film. So, but I got to give credit to our 4 leads for really diving in and embracing this movie.
Hey.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
Get in there.
Hi, I'm in your 301 history class.
I know. And you are?
Brady.
Brady.
Yeah.
And are you in my class or?
No, I'm just here with Meredith.
Yeah, he just wanted to come with me to talk to you.
Really?
Yeah, I just can't have him out of my sight.
Oh, okay. So what's the problem?
Oh, well, I put on a few pounds this summer, and I just don't want to lose him. And I know this bitch from...
No. With the paper.
Oh, well, the paper's due next week, but Brady's formal is this weekend.
Wow.
And I just can't have him go without me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, chicks dig me. I'm hot, so.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephanie Dunbar plays a college professor who is kind of working her way up towards tenure and is dealing with misogyny in the academic world that's unfortunately probably a very realistic situation. And it follows her as she will go in and have meetings with her bosses and present classes. And then as soon as she leaves, they make jokes about her body. And in that moment, she kind of has a moment where she snaps, and she's the one who sort of launches this whole, our problem is the way we approach life. And we are going to have this sort of game where we're all going to challenge each other to take more control of our love lives. And she ends up having an affair with a young student who, which leads to some very funny and awkward scenarios, brilliantly played by Mark McCarver, who you'll hear from later in the series, but really kind of drives home her goal to have power.
I just don't want his nuts to fall off.
She's one of my favorite people on earth, and I'm going to use this opportunity to tell that, and that's Kristen Holder. Kristen was a friend of mine at UT from my other degree plan, and she's my football buddy. We went to games all the time, and she did this, and she did some Quad X stuff for us, and really trusted that I knew what I was doing and trusted this process. And with independent film, trust is key. And when people trust you, it's so important, and it's a compliment, and it's something you don't want to lose. And Kristen played a freshly divorced, a young divorcee who had kind of lost her touch. She was kind of awkward with guys. And her storyline follows her trying to get things going and get things going in that direction.
Either drink it or throw it away. But please stop.
What's up your ass?
Nothing. But in a minute, that bottle will be up yours.
Touchy.
Playing her sister, who was doing that very kind of fun wrestling with her virginity storyline, is Teresa Kelton, who would, from this movie, would become very much the face of this film company on screen. We could not have done anything without Teresa. And, she had a small part, which started as an extra in Look at Me Again, and then just kind of kept coming out. So we gave her some dialogue, and then she did this part. And she and Kristen were great together. And she had a lot of she had some of the most awkward, funny moments that really just kill me in this film.
Dr. Roger is working late. Working with his whore.
He says he's playing softball, but I know that he's really totally fucking his whore. What? I know.
Hey, what's up? Hey, I'm Roger.
Oh, Becca.
Nice to meet you. Hey, babe, I'll be in the shower, all right?
Good.
see that? Did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, he looked like he was playing ball.
Or that's what he wants us to think.
That brings us to Fiona Renee. And Fiona, I think probably got to have the most fun of any of the parts because hers is the most absurd. And she plays a young wife who doesn't feel appreciated by her husband, played by Philip Emanuel, who's one of my favorite actors to do this. And they've got some great stuff. But she kind of gets a little obsessive with the game and targets this young guy who's home like on his first summer from college, this neighbor guy who she kind of targets him, trying to seduce him, but is super, super unsuccessful.
I remember the role being a character who very much was struggling with a societal norm of what a marriage should be and what sex should be, and was really looking to explore possible sides, and whilst doing that, realizing how her exploration can hurt the people that she loves, and really learning how to balance her wants and the pain of the people that she loves. And I didn't realize at the time how deep of a role that was, and I think it's the same for any human being who goes through an experience. You never realize what that experience is teaching you at the time. We learn things in hindsight, and it's really so interesting how I look back on Snatch and Grab and I'm like, wow, one, the camaraderie of Twitchy Dolphin. Yo, like, now that I live in Hollywood and I'm on a network television show, like, you really go back and you look at the first few projects that you made and you really appreciate the collaboration, the commitment, the camaraderie, and the fun, right? We were just laughing all day long and eating yummy food and appreciating each other and having fun. And I think that, I don't know, if there's any lessons that I definitely learned starting out my career with Twitchy Dolphin is yes, it's about the story and it's about the effort and the dedication, and it's serious business, y'all, showbiz. But it's mostly about the community and the fun.
Uh-huh. Nice. Take notice, take heed, represent. I am ready to tear this town apart and rip you to pieces.
And one of the things with Snatch and Grab that it's a little heavy heart to think about, and I'm going to use it to talk about Margaret Ann Garza, who is an actress that isn't with us anymore. She passed away a few years ago. Our festival honors her with the Margaret Ann Garza Award for our Actor of the Year, but this was her first thing. So even though I could have talked about her in the Scarlet Waters episode with Myra, or I could talk about her in 3 References or in Going Gorilla, this was a movie where she really drove it home. One of the things I realized in the script was this movie isn't going to work if it's just 4 women trying to hook up. You had to have a through line and a plot. And I needed a villain who becomes obsessed with one of the men that are one of the 4 women's sort of target. And I picked the character played by John Hafner. She becomes obsessed with him and does threaten to expose the other women. And that becomes sort of the height of the misogyny, is that they end up becoming punished for something that men do all the time, which I think is the ultimate theme in the film.
You've done nothing but help your students, and that kind of dedication should be duplicated by the rest of the faculty.
That's it?
Well, I mean, we are looking at adding some of your course ideas.
And we'd like to offer you your job back.
Oh. Well, no.
No?
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 No. I don't want to work for a regime that would cast aside a valuable member of its team without hearing her side first. I choose not to participate in this misogynistic game any longer. But I want you to go home and take a nice, long look in the mirror. And I want you to think about the way you treat women. It is so degrading. Because the next person you tear down might be the one person you need the most. You are a hypocrite, sir. And to you, I say good day.
Margaret was, I'm going to be honest, she was a lot to handle in the best possible way. She was a ball of energy and a ball of positivity who only called me boss man, which was hilarious. But she was often late to set, but she came in such a good mood that you didn't care and just completely threw herself into whatever part she had. And was this beautiful combination of being generous, of like laughing at herself, not being afraid to embarrass herself, and had so much going for her. And I think a lot of people saw her and thought, well, she's gorgeous, and that's where I think they began and ended for them. I'll always have so much love for her heart. I think she was an incredibly generous person with an amazing sense of humor and so many talents and so many directions. And the thing about this project, I didn't really fully understand all the feelings I'd have about a lot of things, because oftentimes projects in my head are way smaller than they end up being in reality. Like I end up having a lot more to do. And going through this film and realizing that, I get to talk about Margaret, but I have to talk about Margaret and what that means. And, I remember the day we found out, somebody had messaged me and asked if I'd seen her and hadn't.
Margaret Ann Garza was probably one of the most charismatic people that I've ever had the opportunity to be on a set with. She just really seemed excited about doing whatever it was that she was doing. And that enthusiasm was infectious. I can't stress that enough. Oftentimes I would be on the set taking behind the scenes photos, just documenting the experience. And I knew that if Margaret Ann Garza was on the set, I had best follow her around. She was always one of the most photogenic people that I've had the pleasure of coming across. And I'm very thankful for every second that I had to interact with her. Words fail me. How do you even begin to describe someone who just flew into your life, made this mark of excitement, and then have to know that person isn't in the world anymore? It's more than heartbreaking, but looking back now, I'm just glad I got to be a part of her time with Twitchy Dolphin Flicks.
And then we found out that she'd passed, and it was a gut check, and it was gut wrenching. And I felt, you don't really fully appreciate, and I know I'm the worst about this. You don't fully appreciate things until they're gone, until they're over. And when we found out, it was immediately selfish to think, well, I'm not going to laugh with her again. We're not going to hear that. In fact, like she had a full body laugh. When she would get going, she'd fall out, she'd routinely fall out of chairs. Like what? That was her. And so the world is less for not having her in it. And I'm so excited that I get to at least look back at some of these very weird parts she did. She didn't want to do anything normal, man. There were times where she got offered bigger parts, but she wanted the smaller one that was weird. And it was, Going Gorilla was that way. Like she was supposed to be one of the leads, and she wanted to be the assistant who was breaking into screenwriting. And I was so excited when her family reached out and were okay with us naming the award after her. And I remember the first recipients knew her and knew what that meant. So she's always going to be a very special part of this company in my life.